So we have 7 attributes that are associated with subnetting. We have the network ID, we have the broadcast IP, we have the first host, we have the last host, we have the next network, we have the number of IP addresses, and we have the CIDR or subnet mask. Looking at these 7 attributes, our network ID is the first IP address in each or in a subnet. Our broadcast IP is the last IP address in a subnet. The first host is the IP address after the network ID. The last host is the IP address before the broadcast IP. The next network is the IP address after the broadcast IP. So that is IP address that determines or that demarcates the following subnet or a new subnet. And the number of IP addresses, that just tells us how many IP addresses we have. And for the first octet, that corresponds to the group size. For the 4th octet, that corresponds to the group size. While for all the others, the number of IP addresses is calculated as 2 to the n or 2 to the 32 minus the prefix. While the CIDR subnet is just a convention between the CIDR and the subnet mask. So I'd like everyone to write these formulas down as we're going to use them to create our own cheat sheet. Network ID, that is our first IP address in the subnet. Our broadcast IP is the last IP address in each subnet, and it is the next network minus 1. So our broadcast IP is our next network minus 1. Our first host is the IP address after the network ID. So it is the network ID plus 1. Our first host equals our network ID plus 1. Our last host is the IP address before the broadcast IP. So that is the broadcast IP minus 1. So our last host is our broadcast IP minus 1. And our next network is our IP address after the broadcast. So you can put that as your broadcast IP plus 1. And your number of IP addresses for the 4th octet corresponds to the group size. And for every other octet, it is 2 raised to the power of 32 minus your prefix. So our network ID is the first IP address in our subnet. Our broadcast IP is our next network minus 1. Our first host is our network ID plus 1. Our last host is our broadcast IP minus 1. And next network that defines a new IP or new subnet So that is our broadcast IP plus 1. Our number of IP addresses. For group 4 corresponds to the group size, or for the full octet, that corresponds to the group size. While for all the other octets is given by 2 raised to the power of 32 minus the prefix.